Okay, so this is a new project of mine that I'll be using YouTube for, and it's very simple. I'm going to be talking about Christianity and what that is, what it means, um, and I chose this. I chose this so that I don't have a face, just because I don't want to attach a face to the kind of ideas that that I'm going to be talking about, which a lot of people like to do. You see it, all the time wherever you go on TV. Pastors like to say, "Oh, nobody knows this but me." Sometimes it's true, sometimes not. But the fact is, God should get the glory, and that doesn't mean that you shouldn't use whatever God tells you, just because you don't want to use your face. This isn't some sort of pious, way to do this. It's just I don't want people in the street to come up to me and say, "Hey, I saw you do these videos on YouTube, and let's talk about something." Whereas if I met that same person on the street and said, "Hey, would you like to talk about God?" they're not gonna likely be like, "Oh yeah, sure, that's a great idea. Let's talk about some pressing issues." Generally, they'll say, "No, you're crazy," and that's the truth. So it's just because I understand that the way people are, that I just don't want to. I don't even want to chance it. I don't really care for it. So we're going to talk about Christianity. I guess I should give you something to go by. My name, um, my name will be Book for now. I don't want to give you a name either. Same reasons. And Book seem relevant enough. So the things that we're going to talk about. Um, well, why this YouTube? Why using YouTube? I found that in church, it's actually a very difficult task to find people to talk about God with, and that confuses me. I think best described is a verse in the Bible, which we will use um, regularly, and ironically enough, this is the most non-Christian thing you could do is read your Bible, a Bible. If you don't have one, you can get one. You can go online to Bible.com. It's pretty simple. And they've got Bibles in freaking almost every language. It's really no excuse to say, "Oh, I don't have a Bible, so I can't read it." You can go online and read it for free. They'll read it to you. There's audio Bibles. I mean, come on. And the fact is, a lot of Christians do not read their Bible. They have Bibles. They have multiple Bibles. They've got Bibles to share with their friends, but they don't have a Bible for themselves here, and that's a problem. In this Bible, there's a verse in Matthew chapter 7. Matthew, let me show you, is in the New Testament. The New Testament is located towards the end. Acts, John, Luke. It's the first gospel, the first book in the Bible, or in the New Testament of the Bible. It's the New Testament's at the end of it. Okay, here's the beginning of the New Testament right here. And let me get this to focus. Boom, Matthew. Okay, this is New Testament. This is what it looks like here in my Bible, but this Bible only has 528 pages. If you read Harry Potter, well, yeah, the Bible is shorter, especially if you read the entire series. Check it out. This is how much of the New Testament there is. This is really the basis of Christianity. Yeah, there's plenty of stuff here in the Old Testament which tells the history of the Israelites and how the Hebrews even came to be a culture in the world today. Let's get this focus back here. Okay. So, sorry, one more second. Huh. Good enough. Anyways, so yeah, the Old Testament says pretty much where the Jews, the Hebrews, believe they came from. So it's their origin story. If you know anything about anthropology, every culture has an origin story besides American culture. I'm not one of those people who's going to say Obama's the Antichrist. The Pope is the Antichrist, whatever, what have you. That's actually a very narcissistic point of view that the church, not as a whole, but many people within the church love to hold on to for some reason, to think that somehow they are so special that the Bible talked about America, and that America is the great whore of Babylon, and the Antichrist is the Pope, and it's just it's weird, but it makes sense. We are a very self-centered culture, so it makes sense to think that people are very interested in their own destruction, which is strange. But check it out. So in this book of Matthew, there is a verse which I find central to what I'm doing here. Matthew chapter 7, verse 22 and 23. Basically, it says this. It's Jesus speaking. He says, "Many will say to me on that day," he's referring to the day of judgment, future events. So that's prophecy. And he says, "Many will say to me on that day, 'Lord, Lord, have we not prophesied and in your name? And in your name cast out demons, perform miracles?'" I don't care what version of the Bible you're looking at. Every single one of them has these words from Jesus saying people are going to come to him when he comes back to judge. And they're going to say, "We've been doing all these amazing things in your name." And he says to them, "Away from me, workers of iniquity, wicked people, sinners, evildoers, what version have you? They're bad." And he says to these people, "Away from me, I never knew you." This is supremely significant because these are people who it's not saying they claim to do these things. They did these things. People who prophesied. Whether or not you believe in prophecy, personally, I do believe in it, of course, because it's in the Bible. As far as experience it, I have experienced in that I ask people who claim to have the gifts of prophecy. So I say, "Hey, prophesy over me," because I believe when it comes to my own being, my own life, my purpose, or whatever, I already know what I have to do. And so I ask them to see if God gives them the answer. And this is lovely because as far as my own purpose, people, I don't have anything specific. It is something specific, but it's not presented in a specific way, not in any way that is easily understood by our cultural mindset today. So when I get answers from people who claim to have prophecy, they have to have an ambiguous answer. And that in itself is humbling to them because they have to admit that they don't know the answer and that they understand that there is no real focused answer for this. But if they try to do something like, "Oh, I see that God's telling me that you're gonna do this specifically. Oh, you're gonna go into the mission field and you're gonna change the world." These very ambiguous answers. These people generally are liars. But I'm talking about the people who do give the right answers. Also, people who heal, because I believe healing is a real thing. And from my own past, which I won't share, but not yet at least, I have experienced this, and I wasn't going to a church to have people pray for me. I wasn't going to friends and prayer lists and chain letters to get this healing for what I was going through. But it happened, and it happened without me needing to ask for it. And after 2 years of these issues, that's what I got. And so that tells me one thing, that God can heal you himself, and that he can use other people to use his power to heal you. So these are people who have used that power to heal other people. The problem is, these people are using this as an excuse to say, "I'm great. I've done all these things. I get into heaven because of what I've done." The problem is, it's not about what you can do, what you have done. There are plenty good people in the world. Good people. No one is good by God's standard. That's the problem. So when you think you're good enough because of what you've done, even if God himself gave you power to do something and you do it, that doesn't mean you're going to heaven. Why? Because you can believe in the sacrifice of Jesus and still be all about yourself. And that's a problem. That's a problem. It's a heart issue. And if your heart's not in the right place, you're not in the right place. That's good. Anyways, so I use that as a basis for basically everything that I learned. I feel like, and lots of people will use this, and it's so overplayed that it's not even funny. But it's about a relationship, not a religion. But religion is not that. In fact, in I believe James it says, perfect religion is this: that you help the poor and the widows and the homeless. You know, being a good person doesn't take you being Christian. I know plenty of people who aren't Christian. Actually, one of the best people I know is an atheist, like outright atheist, and she helps people. She has a bigger heart for helping people than I do, and I consider myself a Christian. That's not a bad thing. I don't consider myself less or like I gotta, win up to whatever it is that she's doing. I mean, I care for people. That's just not my thing. If I can help people, I will. She is so brokenhearted for the issues of the world and the people who really need the things that they need and they aren't getting, that she went to school for it to help social work. I mean, come on. There are a few degrees in this world that are just useless. One, anthropology. That's what I did. My interest is culture and understanding why people believe the things that they do. And so that's what I'm about. I mean, people are different, and everyone's different. If everyone's the same, yes, we'd be robots, and that would be a problem. But we're not. So once again, sum it up. The issue is you cannot get into heaven based on your actions ever. No matter how many good things you do, it will never outweigh the fact that you are just below that standard. That's how it is. So a lot of people believe that within the church is the collective body of people. The church is all people who claim to believe in Christ, in his resurrection. So, that being said, when I say the church, I'm not talking about a specific church, specific establishment. I'm talking about everyone. And within everyone, there are many issues like that. People who believe incorrectly. And the fact comes down to it, it's because they don't know this. They've never read it. It's too big. It's impossible to read this. I read this in 62 days. I went onto Bible.com and somebody introduced me to a Bible app. That was just a few years ago. And I thought, 90 days? They have a plan to read this thing in 90 days? It's impossible. Look at this. Look at all these. What is this? What is this? No, nobody can do that. And I read it in 62 days. And I skipped a week because I got bored. So let me tell you, this is not impossible. It's not impossible. And if you claim to believe it, and you've lived years and years claiming to be Christian, and you haven't finished this, there is a problem. And the problem is not with this, it's with you. So, let's jump right in it, huh? So, you know what this page is about now. Remember, my name is Book. I mean, it should be easy enough to remember. So that's kind of the introduction to this page, to what we'll be talking about. It's basically a challenge. If you're Christian, it's a challenge because there are a lot of ideas that I'm going to throw at you that you probably don't know how to address. I mean, some seriously pointy issues that if I spoke this normally in a church, they'd probably throw me out for heresy. And I know that's not even a thing anymore, but they would. So we're going to talk about a lot of that stuff. And basically, it's it's to humble people. It's to get you to realize if you don't know. I mean, sure, not everybody knows everything. I don't claim to know everything, but I'm trying to learn as much as I can. That's the difference. It's not that I think that reading it multiple times I'm going to learn everything, because that's impossible. But reading it multiple times, I'll continue to learn to the point where I might have a better understanding, more wisdom to help people to get to whatever it is, the purpose of this, the purpose of life. You know, I don't know it yet. I mean, nobody knows it yet. We'll only know when we die, ironically enough. But that's the case. We got to know what we know. If you claim to believe it, You should actually practice it. Practice what you preach. I mean, that's ironically, that's not a saying that's used often enough anymore because people really don't practice what they preach. So we're going to challenge people who consider themselves to be Christian to think about these ideas, to really dig into what is colloquially known as the Word of God, to dive into that and to figure out what it is they believe. I mean, you get issues on genocide, you got issues on rape. It happens. And not to say that it's a good thing. None of these things are good things, but they reveal one simple truth: humanity. These things happen in humanity. And honestly, if the Bible didn't have any of those things, I would flat out say this is not real. It can't be real because these are not real people. But these are real people. So much so that you got cowards. You got kings who aren't perfect. I mean, this is the last thing you want to do in any written record is turn yourself into what you really are: a despicable person. Sometimes decent, most of the time despicable. And that's what the Bible is. It's the history of the Jewish people, not the whole world. There are people who interact with them throughout time. That's how they end up in there. But the Jewish people, and because they are a patriarch, it is primarily about men, because men ruled in Israel. It's pretty simple, actually. And if you want to complain about women not being part of the Bible, whatever, there are plenty of women in there, plenty of awesome women in there. Those stories far, far exceed the extravagance of that of the men, let me tell you. But women were not primarily to do the things that these women did. What they did was countercultural. The things they often did should have gotten them killed. Instead, it was used for the common good of the people of Israel. And God Himself was on their side. That is what you should take away. You can't say, oh, women didn't have the right to vote then, so women are, bad in the Bible. That's ridiculous. If you haven't read it, shut up. Simple. You can't be on the same level as somebody who has read it and complain about. It's like we'll use Harry Potter again, why not? People who say, oh, Harry Potter, the books, no, it's garbage. I wouldn't read that. And you haven't read it. I haven't read it, but I wouldn't go to somebody who has read the series and say, yeah, those books suck. How would I know? Just the same, how do you go to somebody who says, oh, the Bible's the real deal, it's legit, there's some pretty awesome stories, and say, oh, that sucks, because you haven't read it. Even reading little verses, little passages in there, and saying, I know all about this, that's hypocrisy. So let's not do that. Let's actually investigate. That's what this is about. And we're gonna base the proud with this too. So even with those kind of things, of these people who say, oh, I'm going to heaven because look at all these things that I've done. There are some very simple verses, like the one I showed you, that will put them in their place by the mouth of Jesus. I mean, come on. If you don't know the word, how do you know how to handle the word? And how do you know how to handle the misuse, which is an even bigger problem? That's how people end up in cults. That's how people end up following people. Let me tell you, it says about 27 times in the Bible, God is no acceptor of persons. That is to say, He doesn't take favorites. That means regardless of your status, you could be the greatest multiplex teacher in a church, whatever. It's nothing to God. I mean, it's good that you do good, but it's not going to earn you any brownie points. So, let's let's I guess we'll go into some things that we're going to be talking about, because personally I don't want to drag this along. I just wanted to give you guys a very basic understanding of what we're going to be talking about, which are some pressing issues, and let's get into some of the pressing issues, because I want to tell you what you can expect from this channel. Right away, we're going to go into some of the deeper ones. Again, I don't know all the answers, but I can guarantee you that I'm going to be pretty convincing and using this. So, the first thing we're going to get into is prophecy, end time prophecy, because people love to imagine their own destruction. And what better time than now to discuss what countless people believe is the end times now, these times. And I believe they can be correct, sure. Obviously, the world isn't ended yet, but I believe that, as Jesus said, we have to watch and be ready. And lots of people refuse to watch. They refuse to be ready. They say, yeah, this stuff's going to happen. Jesus is going to come back any day now. But I'll tell you what, he's not coming back tomorrow. And what do you want to do about that? You want to say, oh, you don't know. Nobody knows the hour. Nobody knows the day. But you know what? Jesus says you'll see signs. And if these signs haven't passed, how is he going to come back tomorrow? And these are the kind of questions that really make Christians look stupid when they say, I believe in God, I know about these things, and then they say stuff like that. Nobody knows the day or the hour, so there's no way that he could come back tomorrow, or there's no that he could come back right now. He could come back right now, but you don't even know the signs because you haven't even read your own religious teaching. These are problems. So we'll talk about end times first because they're awesome, and we're not going to jump into Revelations, which everyone does, because I believe that I have what's called in the colloquial circle revelation on and revelation is basically just your eyes being open, revealed, and information understood that isn't readily understood. And I believe you can only get that by actually reading, by actually seeking to understand things. And then I believe God will spiritually take your brain and say, here you go, and it's a goose. And there you go, it's a goose. So I've got that kind of information on end times with so many verses behind it, New and Old Testament, that at the very least, I could create a cult out of it. I'm not going to, but that's what understanding does. It's so convincing that it's either the truth or it's a very, very elaborate lie. So we're not going to go for controversy. I'm just going to tell you what I know, what I believe, and you can take it or leave it. But it'll make great conversation starters. So the first very specific topic is that of the Antichrist. I'm going to tell you who I believe is the Antichrist. And I say who, but I don't know a name. I say who, but I don't know what he looks like. I say who because I believe the answers are given here. I once heard somebody say, every answer to every question you could ask is here. Now, I believe that it's true. Even if I said, what's 2 plus 2, right? And you look in this, you can find some context somewhere where someone's adding things. And they might not be adding to 2, but they'll get to 2. You see, I believe that if you look, you can make connections that people normally wouldn't make. One of the things that makes the Bible so interesting is that it looks into the minds of people. It explains what they were thinking. And that is how we get revelation. It's the same thing that happens with us. It happened with them. This is just kind of skipping thousands of years of data and revelation for yourself by having to experience the same things. You just gather the wisdom, gather the knowledge they had, apply it to now, and you got yourself revelation. So we're going to talk about the Antichrist. That'll be the next video because this one's going a little too long. I'll just make one right after, but that'll be the second video. So, yeah, I like it. So let's have fun with this, take this information, go talk to a Christian. Don't go busting in the doors on a Sunday morning saying, I have information that will change the face of Christianity and I want the pastor to stop speaking now so I can go up and speak. That's not how you do things. They have there's a system in place. Whether or not you believe it, whether or not you accept it, regardless, is irrelevant. You don't go busting into a church and shutting people up so you can give out information. Ask people, when in the appropriate times, ask people, hey, what do you think about this information I came across? If they say, oh, we don't talk about that stuff, or nobody knows the end, because that's the go-to for a Christian who does not know the Bible, who has not read it. And if you hear that, go to somewhere else. Don't even worry about complaining, oh, you don't know your Bible. because let me tell you, I've done it, and it doesn't get anywhere. I mean, all you do is prove them right or prove them wrong rather, and they don't change. So if I have a saying, and this will be good to keep. If people want to know something, they'll look for it. And that's to say, it's in the Bible too. Seeking you shall find. If they're not looking, if they don't care to know this information, they're not going to seek it. So if you come up to them telling them something I told you, something you read yourself, because I encourage you reading everything that I tell you for yourself, so that you have the same understanding, or you can pull another understanding out of it. I don't know, but you'll have something. You know, don't just go by what I say. I'm not the Bible. I'm not God. I'm not Jesus. I'm not perfect. I am just book. And if you tell people, oh, I learned it from book, they're like, oh, what book? And you, oh, the Bible, I guess, because that's what I actually read, right? So that's what I want you to do. So, yeah, thanks again for coming to the channel. Um, have a great time with this. We really will. There's so many things that it's just gonna be great, and we'll have plenty of videos. I encourage you to like the video. If you watch the whole thing or not, I encourage you to like this video. So at the very least, um, if you like the idea of somebody standing up to fake Christians, to hypocrisy, to practicing what they preach, if you like that idea of somebody who can be real about the information and really challenge and question and hammer out the details of Christianity, like this page, subscribe because they will be regular, and share it with your friends. Whether you share it on social media, which will be great, share it on YouTube, share it to people you I don't know, find trolling comment sections of atheists and Christian, debates or whatever. Cause obviously, it happens everywhere. It doesn't even really have to be a Christian video. Share this as I don't know, share it. Why not? Um, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Again, this is Book signing off.